Namaste. My name is Neelima. Welcome to Reflections Along the Way podcast, where you will be listening to reflections from learnings and experiences along my life's journey. In the previous episode, we were discussing about different kinds of activities performed by various people and how the workers are categorized into three different categories based on the attitude with which they perform their work. We also understood how the actions and activities are more joyful if we have an ideal for ourselves that we can work towards. A purpose which is larger than just satisfying our senses. Now we try to understand what the secret of success is. So basically, the quality of action increases when we are inspired by a certain idea, when we are inspired by our work, right? When the ideal that we set for ourselves is nobler, then the idea inspires us so much more, and the greater will be the output from the work, and the greater will also be the beauty of our action itself. So all the great contributors to society in different fields, in whichever field it might be, who have had such noble ideals have left behind great achievements for us, for many generations to enjoy. So what's happening these days is we don't have a definite ideal to channel our energy towards. So that's why we are confused as to what we are doing and probably are not able to put as much towards a particular activity as we are capable of. That's because many of us work with a very selfish attitude, and it doesn't go beyond satisfying our selfish desires and our family's needs and interests. So once we take up an activity for some selfish desire, initially it'll be fine. But after a certain time, it'll become monotonous and we become tired of it. So basically that tiredness is coming because we are tired physically. It's coming from our mental energy getting drained. Because nowadays we see that we are working in comfortable rooms with AC, and it's cold and comfortable physically, right? But then after a few hours of work, we are so tired of it. To illustrate this, Swamiji mentions an example of a farmer in India. So in the villages, a farmer would wake up early in the morning, take his plow, put it on his shoulder, and walk 2 to 3 miles to get to the farm. Then he works hard in the farm for a few hours before it's time to break for lunch. Then he eats the lunch that's brought to him, takes rest for a couple of hours, and again he starts work in the hot sun for another few hours before he heads back home, all the way walking back again for 2 to 3 miles. He reaches home, freshens up, and he's all fresh, all gleeful and joyful, singing away with friends and chatting and sharing laughter with friends. So where is all that energy coming from? Right? I mean, if he can have so much energy after so much physical exertion, why is it that we are getting so tired so easily? So it doesn't mean that people who are complaining that they are tired, they are really tired. But what Swamiji is trying to point out is that tiredness is coming from mental exhaustion, and it is not from physical exhaustion really. Swamiji here also talks about another example where probably a store manager who works in a city wakes up and he's going to work. From the time he's woken up, he's worried about getting more clients, he's worried about his job, he's worried about getting more profits. Whatever he sees, it makes him worried. And on the way to work, he probably sees someone going in a Mercedes, and he's worried that he cannot afford one. By the time he reaches the store, only half of energy is already gone. And after that, then he's worried that the owner of the store makes more money than he does. So mentally, that person is so exhausted at the beginning of the workday itself. So even though physically he hasn't done much work yet, mentally he's already exhausted. Swamiji is trying to point out that the tiredness is not coming from physical exertion really in the modern world, because we have all the conveniences. We have elevators, we have cars, we have AC, we have comforts all around us. It saves us so much energy, but still we complain that we have no energy at all. And why is that? The reason for this difference between the farmer and the store manager in the examples that we had spoken about earlier is that the farmer's mind is relatively very clear and there's no clutter in there because he leads such a simple life. He doesn't have big desires, right? He just goes there happily, does whatever little he does, and comes back and he just wants that meal at the end of the day and time with friends, and he's singing and he's happy. It's less self-centered. In contrast to that, the store manager is so self-centered and worried about fulfilling so many desires that he has. There's so much anxiety in his mind that he is not able to focus on the work that he's supposed to do. The energy is sucked out of him with all these desires and anxiety. And because of such an anxious mind, that person cannot make progress either spiritually or materialistically. So it's very clear then that the secret of success lies in overcoming the negative outlook, right? By conserving our mental energy with a positive mind, we have more energy to apply to our actions. The less selfish the activities are, the more energized we are, and that energy can be used so that we perform more dynamic activity. This energy we get by choosing a very high ideal which is so high that we think beyond our own selfish interests. And if we constantly work towards that ideal that we have set, then we feel inspired in whatever we do. That inspiration comes, we don't feel fatigue, and we'll have a cheerful life. Because of that, we have a better chance at becoming more successful at whatever we do. Basically, what is an ideal? An ideal is something which motivates us to do more activity without feeling the fatigue, right? In the case of a selfish person, the ideal is his or her own welfare, and that person does not make any effort to help or do anything for anyone beyond that person and maybe his or her family. That same person can choose a higher ideal by creating a larger field of work, like by maybe thinking of the community or thinking of the country or whatever, something bigger than just the welfare of the family. When we choose such an ideal which is bigger than ourselves and just our families, and which represents the entire society, then the efforts that he can put in become like so much more efficient, and they become more dynamic when compared to a person who is very, very self-centered. Because the higher the goal, the greater will be our inspiration. As we are serving beyond our selfish needs, we discover these new resources of energy which just pours into this tireless activity. So it's very, very necessary to have a clear and a creative goal so that we may look up to it and get inspired and draw inspiration from it, so that we can propel ourselves into activity. Once we discover such a goal and we surrender ourselves to that goal, we just get this new burst of energy within ourselves. To illustrate this, Swamiji quotes the example of Mahatma Gandhi, who found a great goal to lead India into independence, right? So he sacrificed every comfort, he risked his life for the sake of the nation, basically. but he was so dynamic and strong, and his outer life was very simple and humble, but he was able to do so much and just lead this movement to lead India to independence, right? When all of us in the society dedicate ourselves to a higher ideal, and we have that courage to live up to the convictions that we have, then the society automatically will be very dynamic and beautiful. When we individually, when our personality evolves, eventually, because of that, the nation and the society also becomes more beautiful and more noble. And what Swamiji says is the ultimate ideal for us is to divert our attention from the body, mind, and intellect aspects to the life principle, which is supporting them all, which is that changeless factor of all life. And the self realized or the enlightened people are those who have chosen that highest principle as the ideal, and they dedicate all their activities to it. Such a person lives a life of total independence, and he or she is free from the influence of any changes, both outside or inside. So, to summarize, the secret of success lies in selecting a high ideal which inspires us to work dynamically without getting tired. Thank you for listening to today's reflections. If you'd like to connect with me, please visit bluishmuse.com. Until next time, namaste.